яблони и груши, поплыли туманы над рекой. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег, на крутой.
Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег, на крутой.
Выходила.
Hello and welcome to Kollectiv, and this is actually the first episode of the Boys Club. This will be the women and femme presenting people of Kollectiv running the podcast. So, and I am Lumpy Louise. You've seen me on Kollectiv before. You've seen my fellow commissar Nico has been on here before. Nico does a lot for like the art and everything, the thumbs, the awesome thumbs that you see for the shows and everything. That's who does our stuff. And joining us for the first time from Kollectiv is Comrade Crazy. How you doing, Crazy? Oh no, Crazy's frozen. No.
I'm doing so well. Hi, everybody. Oh my God, I hope you all like me. I hope you all really, really like me.
We all really like you, Crazy. So Crazy helps us out in content creation.
As you can see, I am Collectiv's favorite.
Yep. She is a content creator. You might notice her internet is a little laggy today, but we're gonna work through that, so we'll be fine. And then for the second time on the show, well, first time on the Boys Club, I guess, is Madeline Pendleton. So thank you for coming. So basically, we've been discussing doing the show for like a year. I'm not even kidding you. We've been discussing doing the show for forever, and normally we would have like Comrade Ash should be up here with us, but Ash couldn't make it. We were trying to get this all together, and the time and just everything going on, it was just a little crazy this time, but Ash will be definitely on for the next show, and we thank Madeline for coming up and doing this. So how are you doing, Madeline?
I'm doing all right. I'm getting canceled now like twice a week. I'm getting really used to it. I'm feeling good, It's always fun. It's like nice to open your phone and be like, oh, what did I do this time? So that's exciting. It keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, Ash was experiencing a little of that. I used to experience it a lot. I'm a little older than everyone. I spent a lot of time on Twitter. And that's like one of the things I'm going to get into is talking kind of a history of vote blue no matter who, because that plays a big part of this. So I'm going to get into that in just a second. But yeah, we wanted to do, we've been wanting to do this to have more femme voices out there talking on communism and everything. So we are thankful for the community, and we're thankful for Madeline joining us today. All right, so as I said, I'm going to start with a little bit of history on vote blue no matter who. Let me just pull this up. Okay, so where I want to begin is 1888. I'm going to begin with Grover Cleveland. I know you thought this was going to be a short history. No, it is. Mm-hmm. He chose for Republicans. So as we all know, like Republicans were kind of like, if you look at like the liberalism spectrum of things at the time after the Civil War and right before the Civil War, the Republicans were actually the left side of that. So traditionally, throughout like international communities and stuff, red was the symbol for the left. Grover Cleveland did not like those socialists, did not like the communists. So he kind of was like, we're Republicans, we're going to be blue. Okay, so skip all the way forward, and I'm going to show you a picture here. Stage. This is the Reagan-Bush 84. Notice all these states, those are all ones that Reagan has won. So at this point, they were blue, And you can't really see it. It's like a little symbol there that because they didn't win any states yet. They only won one state this year. So the Democrats were going to be in the red. The green are the ones that hadn't come in before this picture. So, so there was, a history of the Republicans actually using blue up until 2000. That's when CNN decided, and this is where I'm going to say, the Democrats, after Clinton, really wanted to have break because they didn't want to go with the red. They were getting, the red color. They didn't want it. In 2000, CNN decided we're using blue. It just makes sense because Republicans start with R and red starts with R. So this is what makes sense now. Republicans weren't happy either. No one wanted to be red in this country. Nobody wanted to be red. But so that came about, and we weren't really seeing the colors in between because of it was all black and white in media. They didn't have true colors. They weren't really using them all the way through, so that wasn't an important thing until then. Then we come to Obama, and I just want to bring this up. In 2008, when Hillary lost, there was a group of mainly women who called themselves Puma. Because at that time, when Hillary lost and Obama got the nod and he was going in, a whole bunch of them were saying, we are not going to vote for him for various reasons. And so they were calling for party unity, so they went as Pumas. They were party unity, my ass. And they sat there and they did not want to vote for Obama, right? And they protested the DNC that year and everything. So, and then you come to 2016, and this is where I kind of start, getting on social media in a political way. And 2015 is really when I did. And so you start seeing these people were just being nasty. I was just getting on. The reason I supported Bernie because I'm disabled. I just went on disability. I was working, for years and years, and then I went on disability because I have a progressive illness. And so I was like, Medicare for all. Now, I kind of understood that Bernie wasn't a socialist. I'm from New England. I followed Bernie, and I understood that. A lot of people didn't really understand that. So there was some confusion there, and a lot of people blame kind of Bernie for pushing that sock Dems were socialists, that plays a little part into all this too. And then, so then we go on, and in 2018, when we realize we're on Twitter and we keep rehashing the same thing, you didn't vote for Hillary, you gave us Trump, we were getting this left and right. Actually, a person that I was in a DM with, I don't know their real identity, but I had been talking to them for a couple of years. They went and created a whole algorithm thing, went into the computer, did this whole thing, and processed all of what was happening to uncover that, and I think I have that here, that this woman, Sally Albright, created a whole network of we called it a bot farm, and that was just harassing anyone on the left, not the right. It was everyone on the left that they were harassing. And then to add into that, in 2016, this man, David Brock, who was a Republican, who was really pushing for Bill Clinton to be impeached over the Lewinsky stuff back in the 90s, has suddenly become, friends with Hillary. There's one other thing I want to push to, is that they pushed the Pied Piper in 2016. So if you don't know what the Pied Piper is, it was a thing. McCaskill was a senator. She loved it. She loved using the Pied Piper, and what she would do, because she wasn't that popular, she would make sure that she elevated the more unpopular Republicans. So when she went up against the Republicans, she could win. So this was, and we know this because of WikiLeaks. We know that Hillary employed this, and the three people that she did push were Carson, Cruz, and Trump. So who brought us Trump? The Dems. But anyhow, so then that was all that. Let me see what I got here. So then the K-Hive comes about. K-Hive starts, and this is right with the Vote Blue No Matter Who. So they kind of start in that 2018, that push. They couldn't really do it. If you noticed on that other article, it was 2018 when they did this, March in 2018. So this is when we realized that they've already had the court case for the DNC, where the DNC said, we can pick whoever we want for the primary. Like, we don't even have to have them voting. Like, they told us that they can go in the back room with their cigars and pick whoever they want. That is what the lawyers of the DNC told us. So, so then K-Hive is, there's a Twitter account named Bravenack. I don't even know if Bravenack's still there, but this gets into them paying. This is the influencers. They were doing this on Twitter before there was even a TikTok. So they were paying for influencers to come on and do this stuff on Twitter. Bravenack happened to be one of them. Bravenack is started the whole we called them K-Hive first, and then they used it because it was like Bayhive, so they were like, oh, that's cool. And so they were just running amok from 2018 to today. Like, this is just the history of what is going on now. So that is that. So so now we come up into TikTok and what Madeline had addressed, the influencers getting paid there, and this is where it kind of goes off the wire for you, Madeline, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think it was controversial because I thought we all knew that political candidates were paying influencers, and I thought it was funny, actually, that they reached out to me. I was like, oh, some intern didn't do their research. They probably saw me make one video being like, the Republicans did this bad thing. And they're like, perfect. And then, that's when I got multiple offers it was from the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Caucus for the House of Representatives. And they're the ones who offered me multiple videos, paid, right, for thousands of dollars. And then I turned it down, obviously, because I was like, oh, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. But when I talked about it, I thought the only thing that was interesting is the fact that people weren't disclosing it, I'm like, oh, how are they getting around the paid ad thing? That's what I didn't understand. And then it turns out that as long as you don't specifically say, vote for this person, you don't have to disclose that it's a paid ad, which I thought was really interesting. So politics does have a loophole wherein you don't have to disclose legally that you're working for a politician if you go online and even if you're making an advertisement. And these were advertisements. The pitch briefs I was sent were so explicit what to say, what not to say, how to pace it, that's how I was able to recognize when other people were doing it. So when they tell you what to say, I feel like when you hear certain catchphrases, over and over and over again from people, no, there's explicit briefs saying, use this phrase, use this term, use this hashtag. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, we were noticing talking points. We always said, oh, what are today's talking points? It was always a weekly talking point. It always seemed to come out the same day. It might have been Monday or Tuesday. They probably had a meeting Monday, then put them on Tuesday. Then all of a sudden the internet was filled with these talking points and everyone using the same talking points, because you really only need 10 to 15 big creators to mention something, and then you have hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are going to repeat what they're saying. So we were definitely seeing that over on Twitter. There was one other point that while I was doing this and pulling this together that kind of hit my head, which was weird to me, is the which actually kind of plays into a lot of stuff too that we're going to talk about, is the identity politics stuff. They always kind of weaponize identity politics. The liberals like to do that, but all of a sudden it's vote blue no matter who. It's such a weird, it was such a weird split. Just vote for, because I mean, at this time we knew who Manchin was. We knew that he was always voting with Republicans. So we're like, what do you mean vote blue no matter who? We know there's dinos out there. We know there's Democrats in name only, and you're telling us this. It doesn't make any sense that this is your only push, So anyone else want to talk on that before I read a little theory to you guys?
Well, I did want to say, I think it's really interesting what you said about how it feels like there's a meeting on Monday and then all this content comes out in a synchronized way on Tuesday, because being on the receiving end, like when I made that video being like, hey, you guys should know that a lot of the content you're consuming that seems like organic influencers just talking about their politics is probably paid ads they're not disclosing, because I've seen people perform to these exact pitch briefs I received, whatever. It went like kind of viral. It got like 1 million views. I've had videos get 1 million views before. It wasn't a big deal. And that was over the weekend. And then it wasn't until maybe a Monday or a Tuesday when all of a sudden people I've never heard of, who I went and checked out their LinkedIns, and it's like, oh, you work with the Democratic Party. Yeah. And it was like 3 of them, I think, all the same day, made a video with the exact same talking points about me. And there was a delay. And I remember being like, why are you guys saying this now? Like, it's been days since I made that video. Like, it's already died down, but I made it on a weekend. I made it like on a Friday night or something. So I just think that's a really interesting thing you pointed out, because it does feel super synchronized. And there's that joke, everybody's always like yelling at Marxists on the internet, like everyone who disagrees with you isn't a Fed. And it's true. We don't think everyone is. We think a few of them are, not fed necessarily, but definitely being paid by people who are affiliated with our government. And then a lot of people do the Fed's work for free. Just like you said, it's like you only need a handful of people giving you the talking points before everyone just starts repeating them. Yeah. And identity politics, I think, is a part of how they get people to do this. They're like, well, you want to be a good person, right? Like, you want to be on the side of like a moral good. So we have given you the talking points where it feels natural and organic to hate this thing because it's morally bad. And if they can use identity in that way to like kind of protect themselves from judgment or critique, that's what they'll do. So yeah, it's interesting. It's like you just need a few big creators all coming out the same day with the same talking points, and then millions of people will do the Fed's work for free, basically from there. Yeah, it's very interesting.
I want to mention one other thing, because when you were talking, it just reminded me there was something else that came out, and I actually did do a TikTok video on it, but my content. So I say the bad words all the time. I say fascism, and I say the mustache man's name and stuff. Like I always screw up because I talk a lot of history. It's hard for me to like not say certain words. So, but one of the things that happened is we also realized that there's a couple of groups in Hollywood, like the actors, their promoters or their agents and stuff, that are actually run by the Dems. Like there's like one that is really close to the Dems, and that's the United. Is it which is the big one? But like I noticed the actress that came at you is actually part of that agency.
Is it UAG? Is that what it is?
UAG sounds right. Yeah. UAG. Okay. And so it's UAG, and then the other one is the one that Kamala in Biden. I would have looked this up. I didn't think I was going to bring it up, but the one that Kamala and Biden just CAA, they just signed up with that because they get their talent agents through that. So those are the two. Like you will notice that like. Those are the two, and like UAG just they fired Susan Sarandon over like that was over a year ago over her supporting Palestine. So it's out there. But all right, let me just read a couple of quick things for you guys. So first, I'm going to read to you. This is James Foreman. This was actually a TikTok. I saw a woman talking about this, and this is from his 20 Enemies, which are the 20 Enemies of the revolutionary organization that he claims. And number 6 is liberalism. And in this, he talks about like reading Combat Liberalism, which is Mao. And I'm going to summarize that in right after I just read this part. So he's just saying like the most important parts of that is critique and criticism. So then he goes, inside the U.S., with its stress on compromises, individualism, and low-level political discourse, many of us are affected by liberalism. In essence, liberalism is the refusal to engage in principled ideological struggle inside and outside of a revolutionary organization. And if we are truly revolutionary, we will struggle to eliminate all forms of liberalism from our social practices. And I don't know, I agree with that. I think liberalism has been holding us back. What do you guys?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and then I just summarized the 11. So Mao says in the piece of Comrade Liberalism, he does talk about there are other liberalisms, but these are the ones I'm going to say here. So he gives us 11. And so it's letting things slide for the sake of friendship. That's a hard one. That is a hard one to overcome. But you have to criticize your friend. You have to let them know that they're doing something wrong. Doing criticisms in private only. So like I put the only there because I feel like you should be able to talk to somebody, like hash it out first and then go and do your criticisms. Not addressing things because they do not affect you. This one I call the like the reductionist one. Like you're going to go race reduction or you're going to go class reduction, feminist reduction. Like you don't want to do that. You want to realize that there are struggles all over with different marginalized groups. So number 4, I call 2 of them for pride. Number 4 is demanding specific consideration. So that would be like, it's not helping everyone. It's just for you. Like you just, you need extra comfort above and beyond everyone else. Number 5 is indulge in personal attacks. I added within the party because all right, maybe we shouldn't be attacking, but I don't know. All right, you really shouldn't attack. You should only go at like what they're saying and calling that out. You shouldn't do personal attacks at all. I should take off that within party. So number 6 is not rebutting counter-revolutionary remarks. So I use that we're in a different time now with social media. So you're seeing counter-revolutionary remarks all the time. You would have to spend 24/7 addressing them. So, just use good practice. Try to call out one a day. Like just try to call it out. 7, not engaging with others in the party. That would be like an individualism. You're just kind of sitting off. You're not like engaging with people. 8, not criticizing others. 9, not giving a care to the work that you put into the party. So, don't be doing it half-assed. 10 is another pride one, and that's being boastful. And we all get a little boastful sometimes, but that's being boastful. Try not to be boastful. And then 11 is not self-correcting. So that's after you get the criticism and then you're realizing, oh, okay, I did that, but you're not correcting this thing that someone criticized. So that's what I have for everyone. Anyone want to talk on these? You need me to leave them up?
Basically,
Crazy?
The whole thing is if you are basically is what it's saying is the best way to know that you're not a liberal is that you can actually take criticism for once in your life and actually be wrong about something and then learn from the thing that you're wrong about. Because one thing I see with liberals is that there's a lot of egoism, there's a lot of pride, as it says multiple times. There's a lot of like this condescending, patronizing talk of being like, oh, I'm so right, I'm teaching you what's wrong. And then when you tell them anything, like you dare to have a standard and tell them anything, like, hey, maybe Kamala Harris isn't the best choice, right? They will hit you with like a million different things that have nothing to do with what you actually said. I know Madeline knows all about that. Has nothing to do with what you said, nothing you were trying to even say. Like, it's just like, it is just chaos.
Yeah, that's true. The number of people who have told me that my foundation doesn't match and my bangs are fucked, as though those are legitimate critiques of anything politically that I have ever said or stood by. And I'm like, I told you guys I was bad at performing femininity, and then you said that I was a cisgender woman, so I don't know what you want from me here. But that is true. That's what they go to. They go to personal attack. And then they feel like they won. They're like, yeah, that's right. I criticized your makeup. And you're like, this is not accomplishing what you think it is. But I think it is really interesting because it is hard on the internet and in the climate we live in, obviously, to not want to respond to counter-revolutionary remarks, because you're like, well, we're in this phase of education. You want to educate people. You see something, you want to be like, hey guys, this is bad. Like, don't think this way. But I've noticed this on my own page. People have to be like, Madeline, stop now. Like, that was enough. Like, you've done enough. These people are not going to learn. And it's hard because I'm like, it's not for them. It's for people who see it, because there's so many more liberals than there are us. And it's almost like every point you make, you have to make 20 times because there's 20 liberals out there making the same weak, ill-informed, bad take over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So it feels like you have to do more. So it's hard knowing at what point you're being useful and trying to educate people, and at which point it's a waste of your efforts and you are performing liberalism. It's a very challenging one. And especially not being mean to people in the process. Because I was trying to be so nice. Sometimes I get to the point where I'm like, I'm going to kill you. I hate you. It's hard.
It's tough. That's tough. Nico, do you have anything to add? Or?
No, I mean, other than... I even think with what we've been seeing recently, especially with a lot of the responses from other, like, I don't necessarily like using the term leftists, but leftists responding to liberals, you kind of see them sliding into that liberalism. And I think it's like one of the reasons they're bringing it up is like sliding into that liberalism is being anti-communist, being, falling into the liberalism that props up capitalism. So it's always important when we have these discussions to remind yourself like where you might be falling into that liberalism, even if you know that you are, well-read, that you know theory, that you know praxis. Like, it's always a good reminder.
I definitely need that reminder a lot. And also something on there that I think is really interesting is like the thing you were talking about how to be a Marxist, you have to be open to critique, because so much of the way you view the world is wrong, especially if you're an American Marxist, right? So much of how you've been taught that the world exists is wrong. You have to be so comfortable being wrong all the time. And it is really ironic to have people who've never admitted they're wrong about anything just repeat State Department talking points online every day, the liberal army online, try to come criticize you for something you were correct about, and then be like, well, you never admit you're wrong, you never take accountability. And it's like, well, we're doing that constantly all day. Today I tweeted something about what was happening in Syria, and somebody with a hammer and sickle next to the name was like, well, this, and I was like, oh, I'm deleting that actually until I can go take seriously what they said to reassess my position, because maybe I missed something. And like, that is something that I think that we as communists, as Marxists, we do constantly. We're constantly checking each other and being like, well, what about this? And then you're like, oh, I need to rethink this then, thank you. But it is really interesting because liberals do think that the only way to be correct is to lambast you into agreeing with them. And anything short of that is you failing to accept critique. And it's just very, very fascinating, because so much you can see of like a core tenet of Marxism is accepting critique and being open to it constantly. But it has to come from a qualified source.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first steps of becoming a communist is realizing that you're wrong. Just straight up learning that you were wrong and that you have a lot to learn.
Yeah. I always say like communism isn't easy. It's you learn a lot about yourself. You learn, a lot about around you, what's going on. And actually it for me, it actually lets me actually, take, okay, I understand why someone's doing something. You know what I mean? So I don't get as angry. Like I talk about how I had like my anxiety would turn into aggression and stuff like that. And, I would just let that go. But now I can step back and look at something and not get as angry at an individual. You know what I mean? I mean, unless they're being really, really nasty. All right. So next we wanted to move on. Crazy wanted to talk a little bit about anti-communism being anti-blackness. So go ahead, Crazy.
All right. Thank you. First time speaking on the podcast. Love this. Also, thank you for joining us today, Madeline. It's very, very much an honor to have you on the podcast. Loved it the first time. Gonna love it this time too. But basically, so getting into why anti-communism is also anti-blackness is because when people try to deny communism and communist history, especially here in the United States, they inadvertently deny the history of Black communists and the existence of Black communists and things like that. I think there's a video that Madeline, that you kind of like just posted like today, where you're like speaking about like all these different things, and like the first, like, it was like someone being like, you're like, oh, you did this and that, you did this and that, and you're like, oh, this is what happens when you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. Someone in that comment section, I think it's like the top comment, they went, oh, they want everybody to listen to liberal and conservative POC, but they don't everyone listen to communist POC. And that to me is literally the crux of the issue, where they try to uplift all of these liberal, POC content creators, which is also tokenism, which is, a form of racism. They don't want to listen to any of the communist, socialist, Marxist-Leninist creators, because what it does is that it makes Black people a monolith. It pushes that stereotype like, oh, all Black people are Democrats, all Black people are liberals or whatever. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, there is very diverse levels of Black thought, and definitely very diverse levels of Black leftist thought as well. And it also denies the history of, Black Marxist feminists. That's the people that gave us, intersectionality, which has been perverted by liberals into identity politics. Wow, look what happens when you take class out of something. It's all of these different things. And then you also have history, Blackness, regular Black American history. You have the Black Panthers. You have Fred Hampton, Huey P. Newton, Frantz Fanon. You have Langston Hughes. You have Assata Shakur. You have Tupac Shakur. You have I can't believe I'm blanking, but you also have Walter Rodney. I'm not 100% if he's from Africa or from the U.S., but he is a prominent, Black author. And it was something I saw it on like YouTube, where they were like, oh, it was a picture of like Madeline and like Cat Black, and I was like, oh God, this is going to be just a fantastic video, isn't it? And people in the comments saying stuff like, oh, these white leftists will try to quote these Black classic authors and not Black contemporary authors, and yet not a single fucking name of any Black author was named. And it really pissed me off. So I'm sitting here like, who are you talking about? And who are you talking to? Like, what are you talking about? Who are you talking to? What is the difference between contemporary and classic? Can you even define those two words for me? And it really makes me mad. And it really does. Because it just completely degrades and just washes over the very intense, very real history of Black people in this country, which happens to be, believe it or not, very real socialist history. Like, to sit and deny that, like, to try to, like, liberals try to deny that, like, that Black or POC communists exist, it just fucks up everything. Like, you cannot have American history without Black history, and you cannot have Black history without socialist history. Like, if you try to take out any of those things, you're going to fuck yourself over in more ways than you can possibly think.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I think I couldn't find my unmute button for a second. Yeah, and that that is pretty evident, because like when like I struggled with that, thinking of that, like getting online, and it would be like you'd feel like, oh, you have to listen to Black voices, and okay, what if I have like two telling me totally different things? Like what am I supposed to do there? You know what I mean? And that that plays out big time too, because it's really the liberals that will use that, because I feel like the weaponization comes from them, because I don't know, like that. I mean, that's where I've always seen it.
I think like part of it is that part of like the white liberal agenda is to sanitize Black history and like Black radicalism, and to try to strip Black radical tradition from Marxist tradition, from socialist tradition. And I remember being surprised when I learned that like Du Bois was a socialist, was a communist, and Du Bois was talking about going to the USSR and how he felt like just a man for the first time and not a Black man walking down the street. And nobody teaches you about Du Bois's politics in that way when you're learning about Du Bois. And I think it really does speak to the tokenization that Crazy was talking about, where it's like the white liberalism wants to tokenize voices, and that means if the voices were actually too radical, you want to strip them of that radical tradition, you want to get them away from that. It's like the Che Guevara on a t-shirt phenomenon. Everybody knows the aesthetics of the Black Panthers, but there are people in my comment section arguing that the Black Panthers weren't communists, arguing that they weren't Marxist-Leninists. There are people in my comment section saying that I'm a liar for talking about how the Black Panthers how like went to the DPRK, and we're like, what can we learn from the DPRK? Assata Shakur obviously sought refuge in Cuba, and people just want to strip these figures from that history. And I think being a white person, when you hear other white people talk about it, it feels like one of those things you want to stop, because you're like, oh, this feels really fucked up. Like the Black radical tradition, as I've been taught it can't be separated, like Crazy said, from that, from that history of socialism and communism and what it meant to imagine a better world free from like the oppression of like the white capitalist state here in the United States. And it's very, very jarring to hear someone do that. And it feels so violent, to be like, why are you stripping these radicals of their politics? Like, that's so sanitizing. This feels so violent to me. And then have like the white liberal agenda turn that around and be like, well, actually, have you considered that it makes you racist to care about that? And you're like, what? Like, how do you Uno reverse that? It is shocking, but I think it's like what Lumpy was saying. When you fall into like listen to X voices, what they're really saying is listen to the X voices that are the loudest and the most common that we have conveniently promoted on our social media apps, that tell you actually the way to be a good white person is to not challenge the status quo, to not challenge white supremacy as a structural institution, and just keep on voting blue no matter who. And like, that's why they tell you to do that, because they know they have the monopoly on the voices that are the easiest to find because of how the algorithms work, because of the paid content creation. Like, they're telling you that comfortably because someone like Lumpy Louise or like me will be like, well, I've read all of these Black radicals and they say slightly different things, but somebody who hasn't done that research will be like, well, I went on TikTok for 5 minutes and there were 5 people who were paid by the Democratic Party to tell me the exact same talking point. So I think that maybe marginalized people are monolith, and I've heard their opinion. And I think that's why that's like such a prominent thing in like liberal ideology. They really want to push that idea, listen to X voices, because they're trying to monopolize and control which of those voices you hear.
Yeah, and the important conversation too is like, as communists, we actually like intersectionality. Like, we actually incorporate that into, if you come across a communist not doing that, they're a class reductionist. They are not a communist. So like, that is important. That is very important to us, to recognize that. So when it's being weaponized in that way, like, it's just like, wait a sec, like, like, what are you doing? Where it's not helpful at all. Like, it's not helping the marginalized groups to do this. So like, you're just weaponizing and you're pulling people in different directions and giving them, just giving them like this, we're morally right and you should just vote for us because we are more morally right than the other guys. And we're like, but we're a whole different breed. Like, we're not, like, you guys are doing your thing. We don't play with that stuff. So Nico, do you have anything to add on this, or you want to go into your topics?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, unless Crazy has anything, I think Crazy's like led up to the great starting point for where I need to go. But I just want to make sure Crazy doesn't have anything else they would like to say before I go into that.
All right.
Basically, just the only little tidbit that I have left. Cause I think Madeline brought up, like W.E.B. Du Bois and stuff. Like, even Martin Luther King. Like, people love pulling up Martin Luther King. The man at the one of the last big things that he wrote, he was literally arguing with himself, being like people are asking me Martin King, why we keep protesting peacefully and they keep sticking dogs on us. We keep doing everything peacefully. We keep doing this civil disobedience stuff and it's not working. What else do we have to do? We have to fight. And I think Martin Luther King says, not verbatim, but he said something along the lines of I'm having a hard time justifying not being violent anymore. I have a very hard time justifying keep doing this the peaceful right way, because as we see, it just isn't working. And then lo and behold, he himself got shot and killed. And so it's like, and it is just like, that's why I just say, like, anti-communism in this sanitized history, it, like Madeline said, it's all part of like a larger plot to monopolize these voices, sanitize these voices, make them more efficient to capitalism, liberalism, and all these other things. And another set of voices, going to what Nico's going to do, is queer voices as well.
Mm-hmm. No, this actually reminds me of where the area I live in. They actually have a museum where they have some of Martin Luther King's writings, his letters. And I remember going through there and reading the letters, and you can tell that, like, when you read the letters, certain pages aren't there because of the fact that it's alluding to, like, socialist theory, socialist thought. And they don't want you to know that. They want you to think that, he didn't self-critique, that he didn't think about what, like, possibly that nonviolence wasn't the right answer all the time. So, it's interesting that even when you go to places that are still so emotionally impactful, very important to go to, a museum about, national and civil human rights, like, they sanitize it, they liberalize it.
All right, so we wanted to get into Nico wanted to talk about, like, the trans non-binary. Sorry, my cat's like getting on me. The trans non-binary discussions that were coming out because of all this. So Nico, go ahead with that.
Yeah, no, I actually, like, watching what's been going on, specifically, not to hash up the dramas, the stuff like that, but as someone who is non-binary, like, I personally saw some of the reactions that you got, Madeline, about being a cis white woman, and kind of the idea that these people, the identity politics that are being involved with this liberalism, is kind of trying to divide the trans community in a very real way. I'm seeing more and more discussions from people who consider themselves liberal or leftists that are also trans, going down, like, trans medicalist viewpoints in a very real way. Like, I even read some people's, like, comments and stuff like that about, it's like, yeah, with intersectionality, I'm sure everyone here recognizes that, a trans woman who has medically transitioned has very different material conditions than a AFAB non-binary person like myself. But they start doing these type of discussions where they go, well, if you don't medically transition, you must not experience dysphoria, so you don't experience the same things that I do. And I'm like, how, as a non-binary person, there's so many different gender identities under the non-binary umbrella. It's like, for me personally, I don't want to be a man. I don't want to be a woman. I don't want to be something that's like a mix between those two genders. I consider myself agender. Well, what am I supposed to do? I can't medically transition. What is there for me to medically transition to? Why am I forced to change the way I look? Like, I like long hair, I like makeup. Why am I supposed to change that stuff to fit a certain gender identity so that I supposedly won't feel dysphoria, when in reality, I feel dysphoria every single day? Because on both sides, cis people, conservative people, liberal people, even my fellow trans community will make me feel that dysphoria because they will not recognize me as my gender because I don't fit into the boxes they want me to fit into. And it's just, I want to talk about that because that is identity politics. That's liberal identity politics, trying to divide a community that is being attacked on all sides.
For sure.
Non-binary people might be different material conditions, but we are being attacked. We have the same threats that other trans people have, whether other people want to recognize that or not. There are conservative people, there are Nazis that know what a non-binary person looks like, how we think. They know how to target us, and I think that's not being discussed enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I think most people know that even cisgender women are affected by transphobia, right? We have the rise of the transvestigators online. We have cisgender women talking about how they go into the women's room, like bathroom in public spaces, and are sometimes attacked or told to leave. So this idea that we all can recognize that transphobia affects even cisgender women, but somehow the line is drawn and non-binary people who don't present in an androgynous enough way are somehow exempt from it and move through the world not experiencing any transphobia whatsoever. I mean, that's obviously a logical fallacy, because transphobia is something that materially harms everybody, right? Mm-hmm. To varying degrees and in different ways, which I think, nobody would ever deny. Nobody would ever deny that. But it is particularly interesting because so much of most non-binary people who present feminine in particular, the experiences I have had and that I have heard everybody else have is that we grew up kind of like shrouded in dysmorphia because we weren't even allowed to say we were experiencing it, right? Mm-hmm. Like one of my friends, when this whole thing started on my page because somebody in my comment section was like, well, of course you voted third party. You're a cisgender white woman who doesn't care about trans people or Palestinian people. And I was like, I am trans people and I have Palestinian family. Like, that's where this all started from. It's just me telling this person, like, sorry, like, this is what I say in my videos. You don't get to call me a cisgender woman because I'm not a Democrat. Like, that's not how that works, Yeah. But yeah, when that was happening, one of my other friends who is non-binary and presents very feminine reached out and was like, I'm so mad. I'm like shaking, staring at my phone, but I'm so sorry I can't jump in to defend you because I cannot deal with 8,000 people calling me your woman friend right now. And I'm like, yeah, I would never ask you to do that because I know what that experience is like. Because for so many of us, it takes so long and so much dysphoria for us to be like, you know what? No, this is who I am. And I do deserve to take up space in this community. I don't need to take up the most space, right? Nobody does. Yeah. But this is a real part of a non-binary experience. And to be told that you don't get to have that experience unless you're a Democrat, unless you're a liberal, is quite weird, because I said this in another video. If I was like, yeah, I'm non-binary, I'm part of the trans community, and that's why I voted for Kamala Harris, nobody would be mad at me, right? So people are like, nobody's mad at you for how you voted or for what your politics are. And I always push back on that. I'm like, they 100% are. That is what they are upset with. Because if I had been using the fact that I'm trans, I'm non-binary to support liberals, you would love it. You'd be clapping. You'd be yas queening me. This is very much because of my political affiliation, and that has to do with wanting to do the thing we were discussing, like put all people who experience marginalization in one box and make their voices monolith. And if you are part of that box and your voice doesn't fall in line, they want to silence you or they want to get you out of that box. And the way they do that is, well, you're not actually trans. Get out of there. Get out of that box. Never mind the fact that there are plenty of trans women I know who have medically transitioned who are like, I would never fucking vote for a Democrat if my life depended on it because these people are evil. And if you look even a little bit online, you can find many trans women who are communists who are like, I'm sorry, I don't think that my comfort or my access to like hormone therapy, for example, to me, that's not worth the blood of innocent children in other countries. And that's one opinion that I have seen people have, but it's like, liberalism doesn't allow that variety of opinion within the trans experience, and it certainly doesn't allow the variety of transness within the trans experience as well.
Yeah, so it's once again the weaponizing this under liberalism, using this weaponization hurts the community because it's hurting parts of the community, all over the place, and and it's not like. It's not needed because we should realize that not everyone's a monolith, but it was like this identity politics that they decided to use that put, made these monoliths for these groups of people and stuff like that. So, that's the weaponization. Crazy, do you have anything to say on that part of it?
So basically, my own, I'm not like on TikTok, so like I've just seen the videos. I haven't been going into comments. I haven't been doing any of that. But one thing this always reminds me of, I think I talked to it before with Nico, that there was this case, I think it was either last year or maybe even 2 years ago at this point, that there was a black woman and she was shot and killed by a white man, but she was shot and killed because he thought that she was transgender. Like she thought that, like, you know, she was a transgender woman. She was a cis black woman that was just mask presenting. Like, that was her only sin. Her only sin was just not being gender nonconforming. And as someone myself, who is a black queer woman who is not gender nonconforming, I get mistaken for a guy a lot. I even get mistaken for being trans by other fellow queer people. But like, no, I'm also a cisgender black woman that is just simply queer and gender nonconforming. And when I saw that case, the only thing that kept going through my mind was that was me. Like, that's me. Like when if I go out right now, chances are I'm going to get mistaken for a guy. And every time that has happened to me, I try my hardest not to correct them, to just allow this person to misgender me, because I don't want to go through whatever horror that woman may have gone through just because someone just misunderstood what my gender was, and then I die because of someone else's ignorance. And when I see these conversations and I hear these conversations, like, because, you know, it affects everyone. It affects the entire LGBTQ community. And so it's like, when I'm seeing these people, like, oh, if you're transitioning enough, you don't look feminine enough, you don't look masculine, you don't look like your gender enough. And then we have people that are their gender, but that don't look like their gender enough. It's like, what the fuck? Like, I'm in the same position as Nico. Like, what the hell do you want me to do? Because then on top of that, I have, like, PCOS, and it causes a lot of, like, you know, hormone issues. And one big thing that it causes is, you know, excessive hair growth, like, on your face. Like, if I do not shave, I will literally grow a beard. Like, literally 100%, I'm not joking. And so that adds to it. And then, you know, sometimes I don't have to shave, like, every fucking day. Like, sometimes I'm lazy, I want to go out. And it's like, it just makes it really hard, because then now I have this extra thing on top of it. It's like, this is also a, like, just gender presentation thing, but this is also, like, a medical thing. Like, this is a medical thing, just in a different way from being, like, gender dysphoric. And so it's just one of those things where, like, it's anti-queer, it is anti-black, and at the end of the day, it's going to get someone fucking killed. Like, people are dying right now. Just recently, there was a trans man that got tortured for an entire month and died. You know, the detective said it was one of the worst cases they've ever seen. And, like, people are dying right now, and if liberals keep continuing this bullshit, people are going to keep dying. Like, it is literally killing people.
Yep, you're right. You're right. So we were gonna just check out a couple of videos from TikTok surrounding some of this stuff. One I have to do off of the internet because I couldn't download it. So hold on.
This is why post-election I'm identifying as a humanitarian pragmatist rather than a leftist anymore, because leftists are so obsessed with winning the pure of thought pissing contest that they walked us right into fascism so that they could prove to their best buddies that they don't support capitalism. I value materially bettering the quality of life of everybody around me in the most accessible and pragmatic way that I can in the time that I have on Earth, over demonstrating to people on the internet that I am the most pure, hard-ass anti-capitalist out there. Y'all let a fascist into office so that you could get upvoted on Reddit for saying that you're not participating in the system anymore. The system played you. The system played you by getting you to do exactly what capitalism, what fascism wanted, and making you feel good about yourself while you were doing it. The system doesn't need you. The system will continue to function without you, but you know who won't? Your neighbors, who you screwed over in the name of being the purest on the internet. I'm not fucking with y'all anymore. I tried before the election because it was important for us to unify. But y'all have demonstrated time and time again that you, for all of your yapping, are actually disinterested in unity and instead interested in purity hierarchy. So keep up the bullshit. I'm gonna be over here pragmatically advancing human rights.
Okay, so let me remove that first. All right, yeah. So yeah, that was a comment. Oh, sorry, it just went to something else. Okay, that was a comment. The comment was Cruz was our one of our ministers in Kollectiv. Was writing that, and they were responding to his comment. And we weren't asking for unity. We weren't asking for that. Like, there wasn't a time that we were asking for that. So I don't know what they're going on, but this is always the case. Like, the left was mean to me, so why I left the left. So, go ahead, Madeline. Why don't you give your?
I mean, I hadn't seen that before, but I had seen people referencing it. So actually seeing the whole video, there's just so much to unpack, and I think like it's a sentiment I've heard a lot of liberals say where they're like, well, we tried with you. And it's like, well, one, you didn't. You never tried. I mean, repeatedly, communists in particular, were telling Democrats, like, oh, looks like you guys are going to lose your little election over there. You might want to switch course. Like, hey, I think maybe the genocide is more of an issue than you think it is. And, just remembering how, like, I don't know, the Democrats, the liberals were just like, oh, we don't need you. Like, we're going to do this without you. It's like, so very, very obviously, nobody actually tried to collaborate with anybody with actual left-wing politics in our country. We also saw, I'm a little bit older too. I'm almost 40, right? So I know, Lumpy, you remember this. It's like over the course of our lifetime, we've seen the Democratic Party not only not work with people with left-wing politics, but just capitulate further and further and further right-wing in the name of supporting like neoliberal capitalism over and over and over again. So that's like very, very funny too, because there's so much evidence that you've never tried to work with people with left-wing politics. Otherwise, I can tell you right now, Dick Cheney wouldn't have been on anybody's mind. That would never have happened because we spent our youth protesting Dick Cheney in particular. So no, it's just such a fallacy, this idea that they tried to play nice with us. And then it's also a fallacy, these people who are like, well, I was a leftist, but I'm not calling myself that anymore. And it's like, well, you weren't. And that speaks to how everything gets co-opted by liberalism in support of capital. And the term leftist is even an example of that. The term leftist was co-opted by liberalism in support of capital. And the best video I saw leading up to the election about this was a girl just exasperatedly screaming into her camera, like, leftist does not mean cool Democrat. Like, words have meanings. Like, you need to stop doing this. And what it really led to was a lot of cognitive dissonance, because I'm sure that person is like, I'm a leftist, I have left-wing politics, and then encountered actual left-wing politics, and rather than sit with the critique, sit with the understanding that there's actually a lot you need to learn about this, sit with the knowledge that everything maybe they had been taught was propaganda and a lie, they responded by, doubling down and being like, okay, well, I'm the correct one here, how dare you even try to tell me I'm not. And it's very interesting because I think that like Marxists get this reputation of being so pedantic and so judgmental, but we're actually very, very welcoming of people trying to enter our spaces. But, we will try to correct you if you're wrong. And I think that's why we get so many of these why I left the left videos. It's people who were never the left to begin with. And then they face that realization like, oh my God, I thought my politics were left wing. It turns out they are not. And rather than sit with that knowledge and that critique and actually try to learn and advance a true left-wing political viewpoint for themselves, they just go back into their little shell, which is right-wing neoliberal capitalism. So these videos are so funny to watch because it's like you can't leave something you were never a part of. Yeah. Never tried to work with us. And if you did try to work with us, you would have been made aware very, very quickly that you were not a part of this because your wants and needs, if you are supporting that neoliberal capitalist agenda, are so the opposite of ours. How would you bridge that gap? Like, what would working with a liberal even look like when that's the antithesis of our political beliefs? Like, I can't even fathom what that would be. And there's a reason why back in 1847, Engels wrote about the bourgeois socialists, the democratic socialists, and how you're supposed to deal with these people, because they think that I think that person genuinely believed that they had left-wing politics. But this thing happens where when somebody like that encounters left-wing politics, the only way their brain can handle it, because they can't handle acknowledging they might have been wrong about something, is they have to decide that you guys are all secretly right-wing fascist Republicans, because otherwise I have to be wrong about something, and that can't be, right? Yeah. So all of you are secretly evil. And that's the thing I'm going to go with. And you're like, what seems more realistic, that you maybe were wrong about something, or thousands of people are secret Republicans? Like,
I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it brings up also like this whole thing. Like, I don't think a lot of people who, like this person in this video, they haven't actually addressed like the characteristics of white supremacy. This idea of a right to comfort, fear of open conflict. These are all things like they have their white supremacy is ingrained into all of us in the Western world. It's just straight up, it's how it works. And so many liberals who like to think they're on the left never sit down and actually, because they're so focused on identity politics, they don't think about intersectionality. They don't actually address the white supremacy that they have had ingrained in themselves, that when they get challenged, their ego gets hurt. So in the end, they run back to white supremacy because it's a comfort.
You're right. I have another video. Do you want me to play that? It's only a minute long. It's probably more of the same though. So let's do that, and then Crazy, you can comment on some stuff.
Giving attention to accelerationist leftists or the don't vote for Kamala folks. They don't really need or deserve our energy unless they're willing to join in the fight against fascism. It's been crickets from a lot of those big creators. They're still continuing to dump on Biden and Kamala. And believe me, I have every criticism for the Democratic Party as a whole, which I define as feckless and impotent. Not a fan. But I want to focus on this comment because there's something here. I'll be honest, for every leftist who wanted to burn it down, this is what it looks like: loss of services and quality of life for the most vulnerable. Yeah, that's exactly why I could never be an accelerationist, and that's why I was highly critical of them in the last election. Folks who wanted Trump because it would bring about the downfall of America were signing the death warrant on the most vulnerable folks in our communities: children, the disabled, folks in poverty, the homeless, veterans, the elderly, immigrants. Inflicting maximum suffering on the most vulnerable is the goal of this administration. So where do we put our focus to push back against it?
So, Crazy, what do you think of that video?
Lies, and more lies. I kind of saw everyone's face as we were reacting to it. When she tried to do that little sneaky thing where she went from talking to leftists about talking about accelerationists, and I'm just sitting here like, lies, and more lies, and other lies, and all these things, and talking about them. And I saw the part where they were like, look, I have every critique of this administration, and then Lumpy just shook their head like, no, you don't. No, you do not. You have no critiques. And then when she said the critiques, it was just, they are feckless and impotent. Okay, way to just say nothing. Way to just say not a damn thing. And so, and it connects back to what Madeline was saying, where it's like, we dare, the way I like to phrase it is that leftists dare to have standards. We dare to have the standard that maybe you need to know what you're talking about before you enter this conversation. We had the standard of maybe you should probably read some theory before you try to comment on things that require theory. Maybe you should actually read the words and comprehend and actually understand the words of these black Marxists, queer Marxists, feminist Marxists, disabled Marxists, Hispanic Marxists, Native American Marxists. I mean, just like the whole board. Maybe you actually need to do something before you try to tell people who literally understand this better than you. Not every single leftist, of course, but a good chunk of them do the work. They really do. And it's like, please just understand these things, and please just know what you're talking about. And I'm a big unironic read theory leftist, and one thing I hear a lot as a counter argument is that people try to say oh, that's so elitist, that's so classist, that's that academic leftist stuff. And I'm like, hey, do you know there's this website called Marxist.org that's completely free, and you can even access it even if you don't have an internet connection because it's so goddamn old, because that's the entire fucking point of the website? Do you know there's this other thing called the Internet Archive? Do you know there's this other site called Library Genesis? Do you know there's a million different sources that can help you with this, and that there is quite literally no excuse? And then they're kind of well, you see, people have a hard time understanding it. Bro, I know people who are autistic. I know people who are dyslexic. I know people who have mental disabilities, learning disabilities, reading disabilities, that have auditory and visual processing disabilities, and they will run you in fucking circles around theory. And it's just it's literally we dare to just have standards. That's literally it. And then when liberals who are more used to just I guess the best way I've heard it described is like, you know, who are very intellectually masturbatory. Like, you know, they are not necessarily challenged. Like as someone who used to be a liberal, like I used to be a liberal, I used to be like that, where, you know, like a lot of it is just like, guys, we're so right. We're on the right side of history. We're so good. We know everything that's wrong in the world, and we just tell everyone, and we're just so right. And it's just like, that doesn't do anything. Like, you're not learning, though. Like, that is literally the definition of an echo chamber. And a lot of liberals do not like that. They do not like that when you point out that, hey, you're also in an echo chamber, because in their mind, echo chamber has to equal like being ignorant of the world. And it's like, no, like echo chamber is just you keep telling yourself you're right, you're right, you're right, you're right, you're right. And like Madeline pointed out, some of the most critical people that I have ever met of the left have been other leftists. Like, and that's where they get the term tanky, you know, from, well, not the original term, but that's why they throw it around every, you're a tanky, you're just a tanky, you like Stalin, you like all these people. I'm like, bro, the most critical people of Stalin I ever met were other tankies. Tankies are the most critical people of the USSR ever. And it's because we dare to have standards. We dare to know what we're talking about. We dare to try and educate people, that it just rubs them the wrong way, and you see it. Like, it's just
Yeah. This is Professor Crazy. I love doing, I do study group. We do book club study group together. And that is Professor Crazy.
When that woman came up on the screen, it was like a jump scare, because this is like, I once tweeted and I was like, there are 3 TikTokers, if I saw them in the wild, I would try to fight them, and like I would lose and it would not matter. Like, I am 5'3", I'm going down, but I'm still trying, and she's one of them.
I'm sorry.
I was like, this chick. But so I saw it and I was like, oh, of course. And none of this. But then she's got, so this is the thing about liberals using the aesthetics of liberation, the language of liberation, to uphold these systems of oppression. She's wearing the fucking guillotine earrings and talking about how she hates accelerationists, and the best thing you could do is just vote blue no matter who. And it's like, you are such a contradiction. You're out here wearing iconography of liberation. Who are you going to send to the guillotine? Like, somebody on TikTok who told you to read Marx? Like, realistically, who are you guillotining, babe? Nobody. You just said in the same video where you're wearing the earrings that it actually opposes your ideology to be in favor of violent revolution of any kind. So it's just this horrific co-opting. And then the thing, too, about just using rhetoric. Like, liberals love rhetoric, right? And Marxists love action. So when she's sitting there saying, oh, you know, you're throwing immigrants under the bus. It's like, well, you know right away this woman's never bothered to look up deportation rates by president, or she would know Democrats deport more people. You know, she probably wasn't paying attention in December when Biden signed the first federal anti-trans legislation we'd seen in decades. Like, this is the thing. These people, they don't know what they're talking about. They're just using rhetoric that sounds good to enable the status quo. And just seeing her with the fucking earrings on, too. I'm like, you don't get that. You don't get to take our iconography to paint yourself as an armchair revolutionary while saying the most revolutionary thing you can do is uphold the systems of violence that harm everybody every single day. And then try to paint anybody who disagrees as an accelerationist. It's like, babe, it's accelerating already. It's accelerating. Sorry, my dog just jumped on the couch. But it's accelerating whether we're on board or not. You know, It's happening. It's getting worse. Income inequality is getting worse, right? Poor people are struggling more. Like, all this stuff is happening. So I don't know. Her video just upset me so much. Just like everything wrong with liberalism is this woman to me. Oh, it's just infuriating.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, like, I always say to them, like, it's so weird that I know more about what the politicians that you're a fan of, I know more about what they do than you do. Like, you should probably actually look at what they do and what they are, making policy on. Nico, do you have anything to add on that, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those situations, like, I know for me, my response, like, they mentioned, like, one of the first people they mentioned were the disabled. And I'm like, you talk about accelerationism, and, like, disabled people are some of the first people to experience, like, the actual material conditions of, the accelerationism that is happening just because capitalism, we are in a late stage capitalism. It's just what's going to happen. We, like disabled people like myself, feel that stress, that pain first, because we are separated from, being able to make money off of our labor in a very real way. But it's like, you're going to call me an accelerationist when I know the history of, like, say, like what Crazy is talking about, like how being anti-communist is anti-Black. If it wasn't for the Black Panthers, we wouldn't have the disability rights that we do have. They stood along disabled comrades and fed us and protected us while we got the, 504 passed, which is being challenged now. But it's like the Democrats were never going to do anything to codify that, to make it a right for us. And so, yeah, we're feeling that because capitalism needs to take away those protections. It's us who are going to fight to make sure accelerationism doesn't harm the most marginalized, the most oppressed.
Yeah. Madeline, you have a few more minutes. There's one thing that we want to play, and we can discuss here, but it's probably going to be part of our next show that we do for Boys Club, the new Kollectiv podcast. All right, hold on one second.
That shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out and say no.
No, and I appreciate,
but like, would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also humility and grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well.
Okay, so that was, as we know, Newsom with Charlie Kirk, and the first guest he has on a show. I don't know why, but discuss. What do you think, Madeline?
Okay, so for Californians, we're versed in Gavin Newsom. Okay, I lived in San Francisco when he was the mayor. I lived in San Francisco when Kamala was in San Francisco. He's obviously our governor now. Like, this guy is slimy. So in San Francisco, I always talk about how he was the mayor in San Francisco because it's very interesting, because the things he did were objectively very progressive, especially for a Democrat. There was a time when federally it had been legislated that gay marriage was illegal, and he violated federal law and personally married people on the steps of City Hall in San Francisco, gay couples. He used to do critical mass, the bicycle thing, with all of the bike punks every single month. He would be right next to you riding his bike when, if you got doored by a car and then you hit the window, smash the window with your U-lock on your bike. Like, he knows optics. This guy knows optics. So when he was mayor of San Francisco, obviously San Francisco at the time, this is before tech took over. This is like early 2000s. It was still gay. It was still freaky. It was still very, very socialist, very, very progressive. So all of his policies were really pandering to that spirit of pre-tech San Francisco. So we did get a lot of good things. We got citywide health insurance for service workers. And at the time, service work was some of the bulk of the industry in San Francisco before tech took over. So he does these things that he knows appeal to his base. But one of the things we all knew, even in San Francisco, was like, he's doing the right things because we're telling him, and he's accountable to us. He's a politician. This guy's a career politician. So I obviously heard about him doing this interview, and seeing that, you're just like, okay, he's setting himself up for a federal stage now. He's saying what's popular at a national level, and he's riding that line. And we know that Democrats, even Kamala Harris, said that, she would uphold the law regarding trans rights in the year of some of the most anti-trans legislation ever being introduced. And that's kind of what we see Newsom setting himself up to do, too. He's riding the line because he's going to make a federal run. He's going to make a run for probably president. And he knows that nationally, transgender rights are not as popular as they are in California, as they were in San Francisco. And if that man was in San Francisco, I can tell you right now, he'd be personally probably doing gender-affirming surgeries, like for the photo op, in the face of, the federal government trying to crack down. So as a Californian, Gavin Newsom, we call him our psychopath because he really is just what you think of as a politician. That is this guy. He is ruthless. He has no morals. He has no standards. He goes where the popular whim takes him. And yeah, so it does not surprise me he had Charlie Kirk on. It does not surprise me that now all of a sudden he's kind of riding the line, testing the waters. I mean, this guy has absolutely no morals. And this is why I think people are always like, oh, of course you're so comfortable in your California liberal paradise over there. And I'm like, it never occurs to you guys that being born and raised in California, we've seen the end goal of liberalism, and it's Gavin Newsom. And that's not good enough for me. So I'm here to tell you, hey guys, I'm from the future. I know how it plays out. If you give the liberals total control of everything you want with your electoral politics, you get the liberals in the White House, you get the liberals on the Supreme Court, you get the liberals in Congress, you get the liberals Senate and House both. I know what happens. You get Gavin Newsom. You get the guy who goes where the money is and the guy who just says whatever gets him reelected. And this guy doesn't care about homeless people. You know, here in California, he just personally himself cleared out homeless encampments with a smile on his face, like it was a photo op, right? Yep. He doesn't care about gay people, not really, unless they're his friends who are fucking millionaires, billionaires that he gets to go to dinner with. He doesn't care about anybody. He just cares about himself looking good. And in order to look good and uphold capitalism, he is willing to do the most evil, fucked up shit on the planet if it serves his narrative. And that's why when people are like, this is just the thing that gets me, where they're like, well, of course, you in California. And I'm like, you should trust me because I'm in California. You should trust me to tell you this is what it gets you. It gets you Gavin fucking Newsom, and it's not good enough.
Yeah, so I'm in Massachusetts, so I'm like one of those big blue states, just like New York, and you had like Eric Adams. Like, I mean, the Massachusetts, New York, and California liberals are just horrible.
I mean, even here in Atlanta, you know, we have a very liberal like city. Our mayor is a Democrat, and it's this mayor, the Democratic mayor, that is full on support for Cop City. And like, you know, I've mentioned it before in other podcasts, like Cop City is directly tied to Palestine, and, you know, they're interconnected. And the fact that we have people who sit here and say that, you know, the Democrats will save us. It's like I'm watching firsthand how the Democrats are setting us up. They're going to target Palestinians and us with things like cop cities all across the country. And it's the Democrats in a lot of these cities that are funding it.
Yep. Crazy, you got anything to add? And then we can do our closing remarks.
No, I don't really have much to add. Just kind of adding what Nico said about the cop cities. I'm also down here with Nico in the South, and yeah, like just really just a lot of this stuff. Just like it just shows that liberals are not your friend. You know, I also read the Malcolm X quote. Conservatives kind of take this one out of context, but it talks about both of them, where it's like, you know, the conservatives are wolves and the liberals are foxes. Either way it goes, they're both showing you their teeth, and they're both going to bite the fuck out of you. It's just that we just are conditioned to know that wolves are bad. But the problem is that the foxes will mess you up too.
Yeah, there's one story I gotta go back and check on, but in Johnston, Rhode Island, with a a Democrat leader there, they had 32 acres that were put aside to make affordable housing, and he decided he was going to commandeer it to do a cop city. And then everyone come down to the town hall and we'll talk about it. They locked everyone out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So I don't know what happened after that. I have to go look. This was just a few weeks ago. That's Johnston, Rhode Island. So yes, cop cities all over the place for everyone. So do you have anything else you want to say before we say goodbye, Madeline?
No, but I guess when you think Democrat, Gavin Newsom's it. Pay attention to him. He is peak liberal. He's the golden child. That's it. He's the liberal Ronald Reagan. You know?
Oh, he is. Yeah.
And I think we're going to be hearing a lot from him coming up. I'm not going to be surprised if he's the nominee, you know, in 4 years.
I was surprised they didn't run him this summer. Like when they had to make that switch, I almost thought that they would do Newsom, but that's because I pay attention way too much to politics, so I understood what they were doing with Newsom. But it was a little too soon, I guess. So they'll run him 2028. So, anything else from Nico and Crazy? You guys all set?
Yeah, I'm all set.
All right. So until next time, thank you for coming, Madeline.
This was a good episode.
This was a really good show. So thank you, everyone.
Расцветали яблони и груши, поплыли туманы над рекой. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег, на крутой.
Выходила на